Hey everyone, Lou here. A few years ago, I made a review of Black Butler 2 on my channel that did pretty well, but YouTube's copyright system flagged it and immediately took it down, so I thought it was a good idea to review it again, only without the copyright this time. This is a review of Black Butler 2. Okay, so Black Butler 2 was made to capitalize on the success on the first season of Black Butler because greed, except they wrote themselves into a hole already when the ending was so finite that writing any continuation with Ciel and Sebastian was pretty much impossible unless you did an ass pull, which they absolutely did. Although Yana Toboso, the creator of Black Butler, had nothing to do with the plot, as it made its own material instead of going off the source material like the first 14-ish episodes of the anime, she did do all the character designs at least, and has always expressed interest in incorporating Alois and Claude in the manga, which she kind of has in the form of Johanna Garris in the school arc, and real Ciel personality-wise. Given this second season was kind of marketed towards a slightly younger shonen audience than the original season due to its immature writing and fan service, young fans of the season would praise the shit out of it because we were all teenagers and we didn't know better. But in modern times, this season has faced heavy criticism for its lazy writing, shitty animation, and retcons of extremely important plot points. However, let's see for ourselves just how bad this season is. We start our story with Alois Trancy, a boy being essayed by his adoptive father, who summons a demon later named Claude Faustus, who I think is implied to have killed his adopted father. At least I've always thought Alois ordered Claude to kill him and make it look like he died of natural causes. Basically, showing Alois is the same side of the coin as Ciel, except the difference is that Alois has a more common reaction to his abusive childhood by having tantrums, outbursts, and inappropriate behavior. Many would hate Alois because of his personality at the time, but thanks to more discussions on the effects of childhood trauma in people today, I see a lot of people look at him in a far more sympathetic light. He also has 4 other servants, Hannah the maid, and triplets who, yes, are also demons for some reason. Hannah in particular, he's physically abusive to. Personally, I think it's due to trauma reasons, but I don't want to ramble too much about the psychology of Alois Trancy because I think that's a video for another time. We also find out he's cousins with Viscount Druid, which isn't important, but it does show how lazy they are to try and force that Alois has just been here the whole time, apparently. That night, after trying to prove his legitimacy to a priest for some reason, Sebastian comes with a random tea box with the Phantom Hive ring in it. As it turns out, Ciel's soul was stolen by Claude and Alois, while Sebastian carried Ciel's corpse in a suitcase that somehow fits him. Basically, this season tries to explain that somehow Ciel's soul is in his family ring now, and Alois's is also in his family ring, which doesn't make any sense, but they really want to hammer in how important the family rings are to these nobles. Despite zero explanation on the Ruby Trancy family ring, inserting Ciel's soul back into him or something causes Ciel to lose all his memories, so basically he was factory reset to episode 1, just so all the character development Ciel went through in the first season is completely erased. Otherwise, he'd just ask Sebastian to go ahead and kill him. After Ciel is revived, we get a few episodes of the usual Black Butler hijinks, except extremely out of character for almost everyone involved, and kind of cringely written, if I'm being honest. Lau is also alive somehow, despite dying in the previous season, and it's never explained what happened. Personally, I like to think Lau just became Undertaker's bizarre doll because reasons. Who knows, maybe Undertaker needed some of that good kush from Lau. Aberline also has a twin brother in this season that looks more like Aberline's manga counterpart, despite Aberline stating in the first season that he had no siblings, showing once again the lazy writing and trying to keep the status quo of the previous season despite several characters dying or separated from the cast. I mean, I'm still shocked they didn't try to bring Madame Red back somehow, because you'd think Ciel would be really suspicious on why his aunt is dead if he was reset to like episode 1 where he knows his aunt is alive and well. After some lame train hijinks, Ciel arrives in London to attend a costume ball hosted by Alois. Except this costume ball makes no sense because Alois has some random magic shitty glass instrument that makes everyone go nuts like the curry in season 1, which was all a distraction to lure Ciel and Sebastian out to fight them in the woods. Oh, also Alois made Ciel bi-curious now or something by dressing up as a girl to lure him out. Yeah, over a decade later, and I still don't get the entirety of this costume ball. As Alois and Ciel proclaim their vengeance to one another, Prince Selma's curry buns doing nothing to get Ciel's memories back, Sebastian and Claude finally confront each other. Basically, Claude somehow knows Sebastian previously and was jealous Sebastian had a tasty meal ready, so he convinced Alois that Sebastian killed Alois's brother Luca, so he orders Claude to take Ciel's soul somehow, just so Sebastian can, starve to death or something. They don't explain how any of this is possible other than a half-assed explanation at the end, because Sebastian's arm got cut off by Ash in Season 1, the contract was somehow breached. I mean, first of all, couldn't Sebastian just grow his arm back? He's a demon after all. Second, Sebastian explains in Season 1 that the soul of the contract E is bound to the demon so no one can take it, so you'd think unless Ash gouged out Ciel's eye while he was at it, there would be no way for Claude to attain Ciel's soul. However, this is Black Butler 2, so maybe don't question it. They decide that despite Ciel's soul being Sebastian's rightful food, they'll just battle over it and get rid of Alois by telling Ciel that he killed his parents. Again, this is Sebastian's food that he paid for, so why are they arguing over it? So, Alois is killed. Technically, he was killed in self-defense by Ciel, according to Grell's ledgers for his reaping. But Claude just kinda hurried the process, I guess. This is because Claude wants to fuse Ciel and Alois's souls together because he realizes that they're two sides of the same coin. So having two for the price of one is a much better idea, I guess. For a human equivalent, I guess the dude discovered you can put pepperoni on a pizza. Then we cut to another generic case Ciel is investigating, except the twist is that Claude manipulated kids into confessing Alois gouged out their eyes, and then Scotland Yard arrests Ciel because they think he's Alois despite the fact that they worked with him for over 2 years, unless they were all paid actors by Claude and Hannah or something. Then Claude somehow paid an experimental quack doctor to do a soul-fusing ceremony on Ciel, which, by the way, they never explain how this soul-fusing works aside from just repeatedly dumping the poor kid in Gatorade. Ciel now wants nothing to do with Sebastian because he thinks Sebastian murdered his brother, which is super ironic if you read the manga, and orders Sebastian to stay out of his sight, which is our third act drama, I guess, so we can feel like Claude is about to win or something. This is also so Sebastian can go off and investigate more about Alois Trancy and try to find who killed his brother himself, which I don't know why he cares. Where he's basically given the description of Hannah as the one who killed Luca, and also he kills the demon triplets. To me, their death doesn't feel like anything because they never speak, and all they do is just do whatever Claude and Hannah tell them to do, so it's just wasteful potential for a cool concept. I'm just saying, but the triplets in Baki were more interesting than the demon triplets. Anyway, so Alois now fully possessed Ciel's body, and suddenly a random garden maze and clock tower that weren't there before just randomly show up so Sebastian and Claude can argue for Ciel's soul more by playing some trivia questions for fans at home. I mean, this is so dumb, even Claude and Sebastian talk about how stupid this is. In the maze, Sebastian uses the questions to his advantage to expose Hannah for killing Luca, as well as trying to awake Ciel because he knows he's still in there. Basically, though, Hannah had some sort of motherly affection for Luca, and eating his soul corrupted her because he was so kind and chose to work for Alois just to be by his side and someday be a mother figure for him too, which leads to a form of plot twist that absolutely infuriates me, which is that character A could have solved the whole plot if they just said something. While yes, Alois was clearly affectionate towards Claude more than Hannah, Alois is also easily manipulated, so All she had to do was literally remind him of every little thing about Luca or even his parents, and he automatically would have been swayed, as we literally see in the maze. Not only is Hannah the most useless character in this season, quite literally, as she is just a sheath for a random demon sword that's our Deus Ex Machina to the end of this season, but also caused this entire plot to happen because the dumb bitch couldn't just speak up. Now, Alois forms a new contract with Hannah where Claude and Sebastian have to fight for CL a final time, except whoever wins gets fucked over and the other one dies. Surprise, surprise, but Claude loses, where he realizes Alois would have been a great meal, but the dumb fuck was too stupid to realize that he was smelling Alois's burning soul instead of CL's. It's also implied he somehow went to the afterlife with Hannah, Alois, and Luca, where they all became one big happy family? I don't get that, but okay. The fucked over twist is that CL is now a demon somehow, and his last order before being forced into this contract was that Sebastian is not allowed to leave or break the contract until he's eaten his soul. Well, since Sebastian's rule of the contract is that he has to do whatever CL says, and CL is now a demon now, he's pretty much bound to CL forever, which still doesn't make any sense because all CL has to do is just say never mind and Sebastian is forced to obey that order, but I guess they wanted to force in this contrived plot that Sebastian and CL have to be stuck together forever now. Knowing he can't live with humans anymore, CL fakes his death, and I guess he goes to hell with Sebastian to do who knows what. The end. Yeah, as you can see, this plot is absolute garbage. There are some interesting moments, mainly Alois and Claude as a duo, is absolutely fascinating to me, and the Spider OVA shows how fascinating their dynamic could have been if this was exclusively about them, and didn't try to bring back Sebastian and CL. Like, I'm not kidding that I've literally written fanfiction and roleplays with friends that make more sense than Black Butler 2, which is saying a lot when I'm just a humble weeb with a computer. Overall, this story is just hot garbage, and I hate it. This is literally one of the worst written anime seasons I have ever seen in my life, and that is saying a lot when I watched The Promised Neverland Season 2. I don't know why, but the animation is probably more inconsistent than Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's saying a lot when Yugi's hair was constantly trying to eat him in some episodes of the series. I say this because I'm doing a retrospective on Yu-Gi-Oh! And let me tell y'all, the animation there is rough, but this kind of takes the cake. It's not like all of this animation is bad either. Some of it actually does look really nice and decent. But the thing that really bothers me is the constant switch of art styles in every episode, or sometimes every scene. There's this one storyboarder who has this weird sort of cutesy style for CL, and then there's this other who draws faces with very little detail and a strange way of drawing the jaw shape, as if the artist is used to only working in upward angles. I don't know, maybe it's my OCD tendencies, but it genuinely bothers me to see an anime constantly switching art styles every scene or every episode. It just shows a lack of care and consistency to me. If this anime were made in the 90s or earlier, I'd be more forgiving because I know back then it was impossible to keep a consistent art style with animation cells. However, in a digital age, I think it's not an excuse anymore with a big staff like A1 Pictures. Then again, A1 Pictures had notoriously bad animation for Persona 5's anime, so maybe this is par for the course for their cash cow anime. It definitely explains why Sword Art Online has same face syndrome, that's for sure. Overall, the animation sucks and is extremely inconsistent. There are a few new characters, but I'm really going over 3 of them in particular. Aberline's brother just sucks and has wasted screen time to keep the status quo for CL, and the triplet demons are the most useless triplets I have ever seen in anime, which is saying a lot because I've watched Baki and that had unison triplets that amounted to nothing, but at least they were kind of creepy and actually had lines of dialogue in a script. Alois Trancy. When I was a kid, a lot of people hated Alois, and some still do. Mainly, it's because of his bratty personality and selfish deeds, but I personally love his character. He feels like a more realistic reaction to what would happen to a child in this situation. I mean, you're telling me a kid with severe trauma isn't going to have behavioral problems? The only thing that bothers me is that I feel like Alois just didn't get an opportunity to have his own story and journey. Instead, he had to be forced a part of Ciel's journey that we don't see Alois actually do his duties as the Queen Spider, so we never actually see his potential as a child to be taken seriously the way Ciel is. Claude Faustus. I fucking love Claude Faustus, at least in the beginning and the OVA. I do love the idea that Claude is the opposite of Sebastian in every single way, mainly in how they choose to flavor the soul they're going to eat. Sebastian just lets Ciel bask in his anger to fire him up for revenge, while Claude purposefully triggers and reminds Alois of his trauma just to watch him break down and lose it. It's just so fascinating that his actions later on genuinely feel so out of character, especially when he goes nuts over Ciel's soul, though I have to admit that him having a hobby of crocheting is kind of cute, when it's technically the closest he'd get to spinning webs in a human body unless he turned into Spider-Man. Hannah Anna Fellows. Now, many hate Hannah because woman in a predominantly male show, but to me, I don't care what gender Hannah is. She could be a purple genderless alien from the planet Xenon or some shit. The point still stands that she is the most infuriating and useless character in the whole series. By useless, I mean the entire plot could have been avoided if she said something, but instead she just randomly chooses not to, despite literally everything we know in canon telling her otherwise. I get they try to explain in the OVA as demons enjoy suffering, so maybe that's why she doesn't intervene or anything, but that still doesn't make any sense when it's heavily shown that she doesn't think that way anymore because Lucas Cinnamon Roll's soul corrupted her and gave her human emotions like motherly love. The fact that she purposefully seeks out to fuck over Sebastian and Ciel, two characters she has never even met before, and both of which don't even know her goddamn name until near the end of the series. Her being a sheath for some Deus Ex Machina demon sword is also a really poor way at trying to make her badass. Pro tip, if you're trying to write a badass female lead, just to have it be where the male characters have to physically harm her so she can be badass, yeah, that's not a badass female lead, that's just a shonen female side character. All the other existing characters have status quo reset for some reason, a lot of which feels extremely out of character or just doesn't make sense for them to be alive. Hell, I'm surprised they didn't try to resurrect Pluto or something. Overall, I think Alois and Claude are genuinely the highlight of this season, and it just shows that, once again, they just should have had their own spin-off instead of trying to force Sebastian and Ciel into more hijinks. Black Butler 2 is one of the worst second seasons to an anime I have ever seen. I'd say the worst, but since I made my original video, The Promised Neverland Season 2 released, and well, I think that takes the cake for the worst second season to anything ever made. Unless that HBO show The Idol gets a second season. Somehow I think that's gonna take the cake for worst second season ever. Anyway, Black Butler 2 is only really something I recommend for someone in the mood to watch a train wreck, or in the mood for a drinking game, because hey, take a shot, something inconsistent happens in this series. You just might end up so drunk you won't remember even watching it, or on a liver transplant list. Who knows? Sorry again guys that I couldn't show much around this time for the anime. I got hit with a copyright strike in June over the original video, so I knew it was important to just remake this and just kind of remove all the anime visuals, or almost all of them, aside from discussing the animation category. Maybe. I don't know as I'm editing this video. I mean, I would have just been lazy and re-upload the original with the visuals changed, but I'm genuinely embarrassed over my quality back then, so... Anyway, that'll be it for this video. What do you guys think of Black Butler 2? If you want to watch it, by the way, it's on Netflix for some reason, because Netflix just loves having just Black Butler 2. If you guys have any suggestions to keep the discussion of Black Butler going, by the way, be sure to let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!